Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Stately Office Hours. This is where us, the team at Stately, give you updates on everything that we've been working on and releasing to do with Stately and with XState. I'm going to start off this year, as we do every time, with intros from the team. So I'm Laura, and I do advocacy and education for Stately. David?
Hey, I'm David, and I do founding of Stately and creating of XState.
And Farzad?
Hey, I'm Farzad and I do engineering at Stately.
And Nick?
And I'm Nick, and I do product design at Stately.
And of course, there are other members of the team. Some of them might be lurking in the comments. You might see them there. But otherwise, they are occupied today, working very hard. So we spoke to you before the holidays with some really exciting new features that we'd released. And we were talking about GitHub Sync, and we were talking about sources. And these are now ready to go, aren't they? You can now use them inside of the editor, as well as, David, you've got some other new things to show us.
Yeah, so we actually recently released this. We gave you, like Laura said, we gave you a quick preview the end of 2023, and now it is available for you to use. So the first thing I want to talk about is, well, if you haven't seen our new landing page, it's here and it's awesome. Thanks, Nick, for all of the effort into this. But if you go to states.new, we have a couple of changes here. Now state.new is going to take you to a draft project. So it's actually going to create a project for you. And this actually makes it a lot easier to work with because you no longer have to take your machine and save it to a project and then do that in order to see the code. Now, if you're logged in, which it will prompt you to log in, it will immediately have a drafts project for you. And you could see I have a bunch of untitled drafts over here. And when you're ready to actually have these drafts as part of a project, then you could just save it to a project or move it over to a project. So yeah, another big change that I wanted to show, this is our default machine, is sources. So you might be familiar with this, but you might actually notice a new little button over here. So these buttons allow you to actually edit the code sources for these elements. So if you click here, you'll see a code area over here. These are XState V5 guard sources. So we could just click custom and we could just return true. You do have context events, parameters, and other things available in there as well. And you know what? I'm just going to stick with true for that one. And it also works for actions as well. So if we click here, we could actually make a custom action or do our typical assign, raise, send to, etc. But over here, I'm just going to do a custom console.log. I am resetting for the new year. Yeah, just something like that. So where does that actually end up? Well, if you go to the code output, then you're going to see that this ends up in the actual implementations. So here is my guard, and hopefully you can see that. Otherwise, I'll zoom in a little bit. It shows return true. And for the reset action, it shows the reset action over there. And it shows both the actions, guards, and of course, invocations there too. Now, you might also notice something over here. It says add parameter when you select the action. And that means, for lack of a better example, I'll just put foobar, sorry, that you could actually add parameters to actions and guards and soon invocations as well. And so that will show up as here. And by the way, just a small little detail. If you click over here and you enter something like a number, it's going to correctly infer that as a number. Or if you add true, then it will infer that as a Boolean. And if you don't want that, just use quotes. So it's a lot simpler to work with. So we'll just have that as false. All right, so.
But this might be a good point to mention that really cool new feature where you can actually collapse those actions on the canvas so that if you want to have all of that complexity on your machine, but you don't necessarily want to show it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So Nick added this really cool feature where if you go to view, you could actually hide the effects on the canvas, and it will show you a quick summary of what is in there, such as the number of actions or invocations, things like that. And of course, you could just bring that back. Makes it really useful when you want to show people involved the machine without having to overwhelm them with details that might not necessarily matter. So
Sylvan
yeah.
asks, can you reuse a custom action?
Oh, yeah. So this, I named it as reset. So if I wanted to reset, like, let's say in an entry action over here, I just type in the same name. And if you notice, if I click the source here, click the source there. Oh, yeah, I'm already there. Then it actually shows that we have that same reset action. So both of these actions are actually the same because they refer to the same type of action. Now, of course, you could change this or actually add a new action. So new action, and this is going to be, when we click edit, this is going to be a completely new action for you to use. Farzad, is there anything else? Did I miss anything there, or is that pretty much it?
No, I think you just mentioned that you can add parameters to guards and action right now, but guards, parameters, and actors are coming soon. Guard can't take a parameter right now.
Exactly. Oh, wait, guard can? It
I mean,
will.
Technically it can, but you can't edit them now. They are importable with the next release.
Right. Yeah. So we have a lot of great updates coming soon to this. But all right. So we have our code. Let's actually see this in a generated React app. This does not use AI. You could just click Generate React App, and it instantly just creates a scaffolding for a React app with these simple states over here. Now, this is actually going to include those included specified sources such as guards and actions and things like that. And now I'm going to actually open this code sandbox because I want to show you one more thing. Or one more thing for this little demo over here. And that's that if you go here, I actually previewed stately inspect. And so this is going to allow you to inspect your machines in real time. So I know you probably can't see this, so I'll zoom in. But if you add the stately AI/inspect package, which is completely open source, then I'm going to show you how the new inspection works. So let me zoom back out over here. You're going to import create browser inspector, which hints that there are going to be other types of inspectors from stately AI/inspect. And then we're just going to create a browser inspector. So const, I'm just going to be lazy over here. Const inspect equals create browser inspector. So if you're coming from XState inspect, the API is a tiny bit different, but hopefully still familiar enough. So then in the second argument of use machine, or if you're using XState create directly, then you could pass it into the second arguments of create actor. You will pass that inspect function right in there. And so what's going to happen is that when I save this, just like XState inspect, stately AI inspect opens the new inspector window, and you could see a visualization of that machine, and it is in real time. So if I click next over here, you're going to see it moves to another state. Another thing I want to show is that we actually do have a sequence diagram. It's not really interesting right now because we only have a single actor. But if I were to change this and actually, let's say, invoke something. So invoke and source, let's just make this another machine. Then if I reload this, you see we have our initial state over here. We click next. This is going to go to another state. But now we're going to see that from this machine, we actually spawned, or in this case, invoked this other machine, which you could see. And then you could toggle back and forth. This shows nothing because my machine isn't very interesting, doesn't have that many states. And so for more complex use cases, when you have lots of actors talking to each other, you're going to be able to see the events that they're sending back and forth. So we're going to have more complex examples for you pretty soon with that. And of course, you could click events and see all of the events that are sent between the actors, as well as all of the states changes too. So that's how you use Stately AI/inspect. And if you want more information, you could go to github.com/Stately AI/inspect. It is open source. And like I mentioned last time, the reason why it is Stately Inspect and not XState Inspect is because you don't actually have to use this with XState. This is something that we're going to make more examples of soon, but you could use this inspector with pretty much anything. And so the way you do that is where we're going to have more documentation on this soon. It's pretty fresh. But there's 3 types of events: actor events, events, and snapshot events. And so those are types of inspection events that you could manually send at any point, and it's going to send that over to the inspector so you could visualize not only the state machine of what you're working with if you're using XState, but also the sequence diagram of different things talking to each other. So you could get really custom and really creative over here. And technically, this should be able to work for other languages too, because it's just an events object being sent over the wire, either through WebSockets or window.post message. So yeah, it's a very flexible library, and expect a lot more from this coming soon.
I have a question for you, David. What are the chances that the inspect view of the machine, like a live actor, would land in the studio? So if you use inspect with a machine in Code Sandbox, you could see the inspected view instead of in a new browser. You see it like in a Stately Studio.
Oh,
or maybe pass in a URL and then see the inspected view right in the studio.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. Over here, we are actually just opening up a new window, but it is possible to point Stately Inspects to an iframe. And we're going to have documentation for that pretty soon. So if you just, for example, in the studio, if we put an iframe, we could just open up the inspector in that iframe itself.
So all I need is like a crazy white monitor right now with a simple monitoring setup, so I can connect all the live actors of people using my product in production and then see all the state machines going live.
Yeah, right now, yes. But in the future, hopefully we'll have better support for smaller views.
And Nicholas said, OMG, this will be awesome for visualizing all my home automation machines running on a server and how they communicate in real time. That will be really cool. You can send us a screenshot when you're doing that.
Yeah, and we also, of course, have our Stately Sky product as well. And maybe eventually this inspect tool will be able to provide some visibility into that.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, the inspect tool is working with, again, with browser events. And pretty soon, we're going to have a way for you to easily hook up to Stately Sky and have it just work with WebSockets so that you could inspect anything, not just web apps. So you could inspect things running on the server, React's native, etc.
Now, there's another feature. We did have a very full demo of that by Kevin before, but we just wanted to point out that GitHub Sync, as we've been calling it, or connect to GitHub repo, as you'll find it in the UI, is now available. So you can sync your projects with GitHub repos and have bidirectional sync going on, which is really cool.
Yep, that's right. So if you go to the projects page, then you'll see that connect to GitHub repo, and then you'll be able to, to go in and select the branch and the folders and auto-sync from GitHub if you want to, and you'll be able to see all of your machines directly in the studio. And this too, I think if I were to summarize Stately in one word, it would be bidirectional. So this too would be bidirectional. You could edit the machines either in code in the comfort of your own IDE, or you could do it within Stately itself. And so you could see, and this is another thing I want to show, we have a lot of examples, both front end and back end in the XState repo itself. And so now it becomes possible to actually look at those directly in in the studio, which is pretty fun.
It's very cool. Beforehand, I was importing those all manually, so it saves me on a lot of work as well. John says, I upgraded to an ultra-wide monitor when Stately Studio was announced, preempting this day. Well, John, little do you know that we might actually end up having the ability to fit more on the screen very soon, as Nick is currently working on making the studio more responsive for smaller devices, aren't you, Nick?
Yes, currently working on that. Yes.
So just hold on a little bit, and then you'll be able to fit a lot more on the screen as well. So Cedric asks, does the auto-completion for actions, can it repurpose the properties of the context, events, etc.?
Not yet. I think Farzad is planning that. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
we know that it's possible, and we have the foundation. It's just a matter of time.
Yep.
It's the one resource we're always short on is time. Silva says, I may be the first one to test the inspector with Electron. Hope it will work.
Yeah, let me know how it goes, and please let us know in our Discord if you have any problems with that. Also, like I said, Stately Inspect is completely open source, so feel free to make PRs or add issues or things like that.
This is a question we're getting quite a lot recently from Florian. Will the VS Code extension eventually catch up?
That's one of our biggest priorities this month. We are refurbishing. I don't know what the word is. We're redoing the extension.
We planned a rewrite, and we're actively going to start working on that from next week. And we're hoping for a good release with feature parity with the current extension by the end of January, but I'm not promising anything.
And it will have an attic and a basement as well. Something else that I wanted to mention today was that we've also now got a new way that you can request features. We've got a setup that's now based around GitHub. So if you're already using GitHub, which I mean, chances are you are, you can go to feedback.stately.ai. And if you go to the issues there, David, I guess I can direct you now. If you go to the issues tab and new issue, there's actually a nice little interface for helping you create a feature request. So you can add your feature request in there. And then, David, if you go to projects in that tab and the Stately feature requests, you can see all of our, I guess, kind of roadmap board as we're working on right now. You can see what we've completed, which is quite a lot. What's in progress, what's planned, what we're currently reviewing, and a whole bunch of open feature requests. And if you want to upvote any of those, you can just stick your little thumbs up emoji on there. And if you want to find out when the feature has been added or if we plan to add it, then you can go to the notifications in the GitHub issues in the standard kind of way you would subscribe to a GitHub issue and subscribe to be notified to any updates to that issue. And this will hopefully make it a lot easier for our team to integrate the feature requests into their existing workflows and make it much easier for you to suggest the features that you want to see. And right now they do all look like they've been authored by me. But trust me, I did not get rid of all of your previous feature requests. They've all been imported in there. They've got your original names on there as well, and the original number of upvotes that they had. So we haven't lost all of that. I've tried to carry over as much of the existing information that we had.
Yeah, and currently we're in the process of moving this over. So some of the stuff like the focus mode, unfortunately, is not under review. It's under consideration, but not soon to be released.
Right.
Yeah, I suppose it's review as in we're thinking about how we might implement it, rather than under review as in it's a pull request that's in review. Maybe that's quite a confusing name for that status, and I'll have to think about changing it. Oh, I see, as Cedric mentioned that.
Focus mode.
John said the current VS Code extension is like the other Hemsworth brother. It's fine, but you know. But that's why you got to try out the studio. The studio is great as well. And also there's 2 other Hemsworth brothers, aren't there?
I think so. I know there's Chris and Liam, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and then there's the one who was in the TV show with the robots. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
Getting too old. Nicholas says, just to be clear, the thing communicating with the browser inspector is open source, but not the actual inspector app UI, right?
That is correct. So Stately AI Inspect is completely open source. However, the actual visualizer, which is part of Stately Studio, is not open source. However, if you are motivated enough, given that this is open source, you can build your own inspector for this, and people have done that. That's why I'm going to be adding more documentation. There's 3 main events: actor events, snapshot events, and events. And yeah, so as long as you have 2 things communicating and one thing being able to receive those events and visualize them, then I say that's all you need, but honestly, it's like tip of the iceberg. All of the effort is in the actual visualization part, which we've spent years working on. But again, you could create your own visualizer if you are so compelled to.
Yeah, if you want to recreate all of that hard work. Is there anything else that we wanted to share this week, team? We've kind of got up and running very quickly. It's the first week of January is not even out yet.
I just want to remind people that last month we recently released XState version 5. And so, we've been just making a lot of improvements to it since then. The API, of course, is still the same. We're not doing any breaking changes in V5. Obviously, from V4 to V5, there are some. But yeah, we've been updating the documentation constantly. But if you do want to take a look at XState V5, I highly encourage you to give it a read. Migrating from XState V4 is actually not that bad. And we might be doing another webinar pretty soon for XState V5, especially with React, I think we talked about doing next, and frameworks like that. But we also want to do a backend workflow-centric webinar as well, just because a lot of people are using XState on the backend too. I also wanted to mention that if you or your company or team is interested in webinars, consulting sessions, or workshops, then feel free to contact us, and we'd be happy to kick that off for you.
Yeah, you can do that. Also, you can request a demo via our demo link. You can get that from sky.stately.ai/request-demo. Or if you go to our landing page at stately.ai, you can find the demo link there. You can also find ways to contact us about all of those additional services or extra tiers like enterprise tier on the pricing page too. That quickly reminds me as well that V5 is getting full support in the studio as well. And there are some features that we've added already to make it easier for you to work with V5, including now there is a drop down so that you can choose between XState V4 and V5 in the code panel. And the important thing about this is that if you're using GitHub Sync, it will use that to format your code accordingly for your exported machines or your synced machines, I suppose they would be at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And one of the major changes that we're going to be making soon is that, or we've already started making, is that the editor is going to be XState V5 first, because that's pretty much a superset of everything that XState V4 could do. But of course, we're still going to provide the option for converting to XState V4 if that's what you're still using in your project. So it is going to be compatible with V4 and V5. It's just that a lot of the features are going to be V5 focused.
Great. Silent Echo asks, when can we expect more documentation on typing things explicitly, particularly the types actors as approach without using setup?
Yeah, so with things like that, we're constantly adding to the documentation. And so if you look at that, oh, it does say coming soon. So we are going to have to add that in there. But yeah, we are constantly adding documentation and TypeScript docs for pretty much all of the sections in the documentation. So, things like this. But yeah, please recommend it in, well, actually, Discord. We do have the, Discord, or I was going to say the GitHub as well. So our documentation is also, we love open source. So the documentation is completely open source too. And so, you could present an issue. that's not it. So docs, you could present an issue and we will get to it. And usually for small things such as TypeScript and stuff, I just push directly to main once I've edited the docs. So the documentation is updated pretty frequently. Another quick note.
If you don't see a PR there, that's the reason why.
Yeah. Another quick note with the documentation. I recently added sections on the different actors that you can invoke, just because with XState V5, it is an actor first approach. So, we have this, of course, this page giving an overview of the actor model and actor logic, but also this comparison table over here, where you could see just an overview of the different types of actors that you could spawn, invoke, or directly create, and their capabilities. Of course, state machine actors are going to be the most capable, but you could just compare the other actors according to your needs, and each of them have their own tables as well, with a quick summary on how to use each of the actors, or the types of actor logic.
And if there are any docs that we've said that we're going to be working on and you haven't seen them yet, do feel free to nudge us on Discord at discord.stately.ai, because there's a lot to do and sometimes things fall by the wayside, and a nudge always helps. So we'll happily receive those. Here we have, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the number of consonants in that name. Is there any good strategy to restore actor references from different systems? Imagine actor A and B. Actor B can spawn actor A as child, but we could also start standalone actor A and send events.
Ooh, that's pretty complex. I would recommend, since that's more of a longer form question, let's tackle this in the Discord. So if you go to the help channel on our Discord, then we'd be happy to help you there.
Yeah, the help channel is very busy, and you do get questions answered in there. So please do try that out. It's good if you want to share code examples as well. If you've got a Stack Blitz or a code sandbox with your code in it, that makes it really easy for folks to help you out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So does anyone else have any questions that they wanted to ask us? You know that you can ask us questions live on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and on Twitch, and they come straight into us here. But if you just have a question that you want to ask us in our next office hours, we do have a dedicated office hours channel in our Discord, or you can just let us know on social media. We're on pretty much all of the platforms at Stately AI, so you can find us very easily there. Team, is there anything else that we wanted to share? Why not tri-directional?
Why not tri-directional? I will say that, it is pretty much tri-directional, because you're converting both ideas such as requirements, things like that, to diagrams, to code, and you could just convert between all three of those things. So technically the studio is pretty tri-directional. I want to show this.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah, just as a reminder of, what we have. Let me go back here. If you want, you could always, just speaking of tri-directional, we know that you could convert from code to a state machine back to code, but of course you could generate different machines from here, or you could even modify existing state machine flows just using natural language, and then you could convert from the state machine back to natural language. So we are incorporating AI in here, but AI, of course, is a very, very small part of what we do. And so you could see it pretty accurately says this state machine represents the process of making a donut. And then it gives you nice natural language that you could use in, I don't know, Jira, Notion, wherever you post your specifications and requirements, and share them with the team.
Silent Echo asks, is there any way to provide a custom serialization function? I'm in the middle of wrapping pixie.js components in state machine actors, and that pollutes the context pretty heavily for persistence.
Yep, so I still need to write documentation on this, but we do have this, I'll zoom in here, we have this serialize option, which allows you to pass in a custom serializer over there. And again, we're going to be adding documentation on that.
Great. John asks, is the Stately Inspect API final-ish?
So the Inspect API itself over here, semi-final. However, I will say that the inspection events, which are those 3 events that I mentioned, those are final because those are part of the XState API. So everything else is just conveniences around that. But yeah, right now the version is 0.1.0. Once it reaches version 1.0.0, then we could consider it stable.
And this person asks a question where they've added more details in the help channel. So I think we'll answer that question in the help channel. I think that makes sense to go back there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. We thought this would be a short one, but we've got past half hour already. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here to ask questions and give us your feedback. And it helps keep us going, and knowing that you have particular features that you're interested in helps us prioritize what we're working on. And that's a reminder to go to the feature requests and add more of your own, or upvote those that are already there. We will be back hopefully in a week or 2. You can find out when the next office hours is by joining us on our Discord in the office hours channel. You can follow us on social media. If you subscribe to us on YouTube, or I think if you follow us on LinkedIn, or if you subscribe to us on Twitch, you will get notified about our live streams as soon as we know that they're happening. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Oh, just before I forget, I nearly forgot. I'm very sorry. You got to catch David. He's speaking at that conference, which is on the 29th to the 31st of January, so the end of this month. What are you be talking about there, David?
So I think my talk title is Actors Behind the Scenes. So it's actually going to be very much focused on an introduction to the actor model, how it's useful, and yeah, of course, talking about XState in there, but really about how you could think of your application, the different parts of your application as actors, and how it could help you and your team better communicate and understand everything that's going on in your application, regardless of if you're using XState or not. It's just a really good mental model.
That sounds fabulous. I hope there's going to be a video so that we can all catch it all later if we can't make it. But if you go to that URL, you should be able to find yourself a ticket if you're local. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And we will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
See you all.